This is our elimination method assignment number 1. There's a total of 8 questions on here. I'm going to go through and do, I think, like 3 of them with you guys, just to get you guys started with this assignment, but eventually you're going to have to do all of them. So if you already did them, just follow along with me, check your answers. But the first one we're going to be doing together is going to be number 2. Our directions here, it says, solve each system of equations by elimination. Clearly identify your solution. And for all of these, the bottom right corner of each question, the solution's already there. So you can check your answers and make sure that you did it correct. But we're going to be using the method that we did yesterday with our notes. So our first one here, number 2, we have our 2 equations. And the first thing we want to do is check and see, do we have opposites? So let's see, yes, they're all lined up. All the x's are on top of each other, all the y's are on top of each other, and all of your constants are on top of each other. Now we just want to check and see, do we have opposites? Okay, so we have our positive 3x and positive 8x. Those are not opposites, so we're not going to work with those. And then looking here, we have a positive y and positive y. Again, those are also not opposites. So since they are not opposites, we're going to need to multiply one of these equations by a -1. Okay, so I'm actually going to show you guys an easier way to do this. Instead of rewriting your whole entire equation like we did yesterday, we're just going to go in and insert the opposite sign in front of each term. So we're going to change this first equation here, the 3x plus y equals 5. We're going to make every term have the opposite sign. So if we're looking at the 3x, it's a positive 3x. The opposite of positive 3x is negative 3x. So I'm just going to put my negative sign in front of the 3x. So now it looks like a negative 3x. And then my next thing is the positive y. The opposite of positive y is negative y. So I have a negative y. So now it says negative 3x plus negative y. And then the last one, my 5. The opposite of positive 5, we have to change this one as well. Opposite of positive 5 is negative 5. So we changed everything to the opposite sign. It's the same thing that we did yesterday, but instead of rewriting the entire equation, I just went through and I put in the opposite sign just to kind of save us some room here. Okay, so again, I'm still going to draw my line underneath. And then now we can check and see, do we have opposites? We have this negative 3x and positive 8x. Those are still not opposites. They're opposite signs, but they're different numbers, so they're not opposites. Okay, so let's look at our next term. We have a negative y and a positive y. These are opposites. They have different signs, and of course, there's always that invisible 1 in front of each variable. So we're actually going to eliminate our y variables here. So let's go ahead and cross them off since they're opposites. We have a negative 1y and a positive 1y. And then we can start adding everything else up together. So adding our 2 equations, we have our next column here. Our first one, sorry. The negative 3x plus 8x. And then negative 3x plus 8x is 5x. And then I'm going to bring down the equal sign. And then our next section that we're going to be adding are these 2 here, the negative 5 plus 25. And negative 5 plus 25 is positive 20. Okay, so we eliminated the one variable. Now we're just going to solve for x. We know we can read this as 5 times x, so we're going to do the opposite, divide by 5 on both sides. So then x equals 20 divided by 5 is 4. And then go ahead and check your answer. Bottom right corner, we know it's written as x comma y. Our answer says x is 4, and here we got x equals 4. That means we did it correct, and then we can keep on going. Okay, now we need to figure out what is y. We already have that x equals 4. Now we're going to pick one of those equations. You can always pick the easier one if you see an easier one. But you can always pick either one of those equations. It doesn't matter. You're still going to get the right answer as long as you do all the math correct. For this one, they both look about the same. So let's just pick our first equation. I'm going to rewrite the first equation. 3x plus y equals 5. And I'm rewriting it how they told us the equation was at the very beginning, not with my changes, just what they told us at the beginning. Okay, so now I'm going to take, now I'm going to take this 4, and since x equals 4, I'm going to plug it back into that other equation, and it's going to go into the x. Okay, so now we're going to do our substitution, plug it in, when parentheses, write down the rest of the equation. So now I have 3 times 4 plus y equals 5. And then we can keep on solving. We have next is our multiplication. The 3 times 4 is 12. Bring down the rest of the equation. Next is adding or subtracting. Next, we need to get rid of that 12. It is a positive 12, so I'm going to do the opposite, minus 12 on both sides. So this cancels out. And then y equals 5 minus 12 is negative 7. Double check your answer. Down here it says y is negative 7. We got y equals negative 7. So that means that we did it correct. Your final answer is this down here. This is how you write your final answer in parentheses 4 comma negative 7. Okay, so if we were to graph this, you would know that they're intersecting and there's only one solution at that point, the 4 comma negative 7. Okay, let's go on to the next one. We're going to do together. Next one, number 4. Next one we're going to do together is number 4. So we're going to see, are they all lined up? If I draw my lines down here, are the x's on top of each other? Are the y's on top of each other? And are the constants on top of each other? The answer is yes, yes, yes. They are all on top of each other. So it is lined up. Let's check and see, do we have opposites? Are positive 2x and negative 5x, are those opposites? Yes or no? Please write that in the chat for me, please. Are positive 2x and negative 5x opposites? Yes or no? Please write that in the chat. So you're answering the question, are positive 2x and negative 5x opposites? And the correct answer is no, they are not opposites. Let's look on to our next one. We have negative 3y and negative 3y. Are these opposites? Yes or no? Are negative 3y and negative 3y opposites? Yes or no? Please write your answer in the chat. And for this one, they're also not opposites. Okay, so since they're not opposites, we need to multiply one of these equations by a negative 1. And I showed you guys an easier way to do this, just to go through and then put the opposite sign through the entire equation. So let's do the same thing. We're going to do the little easy shortcut way. So let's do the first equation, the 2x minus 3y equals 9. And we're just going to put the opposite sign for each term. So our first term here, this 2x. It's a positive 2x. What is the opposite of positive 2x? Please write that in the chat. What is the opposite of positive 2x? Write your answer in the chat. Awesome, perfect. The opposite of positive 2x is negative 2x. So I just put a negative sign in front of it. And let's go on to our next term. Our next term is a negative 3y. What is the opposite of negative 3y? Please put your answer in the chat. What is the opposite of negative 3y? Awesome, perfect. So this is the opposite of negative 3y is positive 3y. I just turned my minus sign into a plus sign because it's easier to write on top of it. And then our last one here. We have this positive 9. What is the opposite of positive 9? Write the answer in the chat. Opposite of positive 9, awesome, is negative 9. Good job. Okay. So now let's double check. Let's check and see, do we have opposites now? Let's look here. We have a negative 2x and a negative 5x. Are those opposites, yes or no? The negative 2x and negative 5x. They have the same signs and different numbers, so they are not opposites, correct? They are not. The answer would be no. Let's look on to our next one here. Are positive 3y and negative 3y, are those opposites, yes or no? Are positive 3y and negative 3y opposites? The correct answer is yes. Perfect, good job. So we know we're going to eliminate our y's. You can cross them off. And then let's start adding our two equations. If it helps, you can always circle and write them out on the side like I'm doing here. So we're going to add these two together. So we're adding negative 2x plus negative 5x. What do you get when you add negative 2x plus negative 5x? What is your answer for negative 2x plus negative 5x, since we're adding these two equations together? Awesome, good job. Negative 2x plus negative 5x is negative 7x. Perfect. And then let's go on to our next one here. We have negative 9 plus 30. What is negative 9 plus 30? Go ahead and write that in the chat for me, please. What is negative 9 plus 30? And we get 21. Perfect, good job. Now we just need to solve for x. Go ahead and solve for x. I'll give you guys like 30 seconds. Solve for x. Don't type in the answer yet. Just solve for x. Don't type in your answer. Not yet. All right, so once you have your answer, once you get x equals a number, go ahead and type your answer into the chat. You can go ahead and type it in now. Tell me, what do you get when you solve for x? What does x equal? Awesome, good job. So for this, we're going to divide by negative 7. So then x equals negative 3. Good job. You can check down here. X is negative 3. X is negative 3. So that means we can go on to our next one. We're going to pick one of these equations here, whichever one looks easier, but these look the same. So let's just use the first one. And you're going to rewrite the equation just like they told us at the very, very beginning, not with our changes. And originally, the equation was written as 2x minus 3y equals 9. That's what the equation looked like at the very beginning before we did our changes. Okay, now I'm going to take this negative 3, and I'm going to plug it into this equation here. Where should the negative 3 go? Into the x or into the y? Go ahead and write your answer in the chat. Where should the negative 3 go? In the x or in the y? Perfect, good job. We're going to substitute our negative 3 into the x. So you should have 2 parentheses negative 3. And then you write down the rest of the equation. Now we're going to solve for y. What is the next thing I should do for solving this equation? What is my next step? Go ahead and write in the chat. What should I do next? What should I do for my next step for solving this equation? Awesome, good job. So the next thing we're going to do here is multiply this 2 times negative 3. So I get negative 6. Copy down the rest of the equation. And what's my next step? Go ahead and write in the chat. What should I do next? What should I do next? And your hint is either adding or subtracting. Go ahead and write in the chat. Got one answer so far. Give me a couple more. See some people typing. Awesome, good job. So the next thing we're doing is add 6 to both sides. So this cancels out. Negative 3y equals 9 plus 6. is 15. What's my last step? What should I do to solve for y? Do what to both sides? What is my last step? What should I do to both sides? Perfect. We're going to divide by -3. So then y equals -5. You can check down here. Y is -5. Y is -5. That means our answer, you would write it as your final answer, parentheses, -3, comma, -5, parentheses. That is your final answer. Okay, let's do one more question together. Going on to the last one we'll do together is number 8. And remember, you guys are going to go back and you're going to do all of these questions. I was just going through and doing a couple of them with you guys. And whenever I do this as a group and we do some together, you also need to get these questions done with me. I'm just helping you guys out and doing a couple of them just to get you started. Okay, so let's look at our 2 equations here. Are they lined up? Yes or no? Go ahead and write in the chat. Are these 2 equations lined up? So what I'm asking is, are the x's on top of each other? Are the y's on top of each other? And are the constants on top of each other? And the answer is yes, they are lined up. Now let's check and see. Do we have any opposites? Look at your x's and look at your y's. Do we have any opposites right now? Yes or no? Are there any opposites? So do we have any opposites? I see a couple of answers here. I see some people saying yes. So if you said yes, what are my opposites? Are the opposites the x variables or the y variables? Or if you said no, tell me why there are no opposites. Let's see. So the people that said yes, there's opposites. You guys said the y variables are opposites. So if we're looking at our y variables, that is this one that's circled here, our signs, we have a positive 5y and a negative 7y. The signs, positive, negative, those are opposites, but look at your numbers. Since our numbers are different, it's a 5 and a 7, technically those are not opposites. So we got to answer here because it has to be the same number and different sign to be opposites. That is correct. So since we have no opposites for either one of these, the 6 x's here, these are the same sign. They're the same sign, same numbers. So those are not opposites. We have different signs, same numbers. And then I already kind of explained our y variables. So let's make one of these equations. Let's multiply one of them by a -1. And I showed you guys the little cheap, easy way to do this is just to put the opposite sign in front of every single term. And for this one, I'm actually going to do it to the second equation. You can do it to either one. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to do it to the second one. I'm just going to show you guys you can do it any way. Pick any different equation and you'll still get the right answer as long as you do your math correct. So our first term here, this 6x. What is the opposite of positive 6x? Go ahead and write in the chat. What is the opposite of positive 6x? Awesome, good job. So we should get a -6x. I'm just going to put the negative sign in front of it. And then going on to our next term is a -7y. What is the opposite of -7y? And you can write your answer in the chat. Awesome, good job. Opposite of -7y is positive 7y. I just turned my minus sign into a plus sign. And then our last one, don't forget your very last term, the constant on the other side of the equal sign. What is the opposite of -20? What is the opposite of -20? Write your answer in the chat for me, please. Awesome. The opposite of -20 is positive 20. Okay, so I just turned my negative sign into a positive sign by putting the line right through it down the middle. Okay, so now let's start adding these equations here. Or actually, let me slow down. Which ones, let's identify the opposite. Which variable, x's or y's, have opposites? Which ones are opposites, the x variables or y variables? Go ahead and write that answer in the chat. Which ones are opposites, the x variables or the y variables? And it does not matter which equation you change. That's why the first two questions I changed the first one, and this last question I changed the second equation. So you can pick any equation that you want to change, because as long as you do your math correct, you'll still get the right answer. So I'm looking for a couple more people to respond. Which one or which variable has opposites? Do the x variables have opposites or do the y variables have opposites? And remember, in order for it to be opposite, we need different signs in the same number. Different signs, same number. So awesome. As you can see, our x variables, these are opposites because we have a positive 6x and a negative 6x. We have different signs in the same number. So these are opposites. Okay, so we're going to eliminate our x value. So I'm going to cross it off. And then I'm going to add the rest of the equation. I like to circle them so it kind of stands out. So you don't have to do this. The next thing we're adding here is 5y plus 7y. What is 5y plus 7y? Go ahead and write that in the chat for me, please. What is 5y plus 7y? Awesome, you get 12y. Bring down the equal sign. And then our last one, we have 4 plus 20. What is 4 plus 20? Write that in the chat for me, please. And we get 24. Good job. Go ahead and solve for y. Solve for y. Don't write your answer in the chat yet. Just go ahead and finish this equation. Solve for y. I'll give you like 30 seconds. Finish solving this equation. All right, go ahead and type your answer in the chat. What does y equal? When you solve for y, what do you get for your answer? Go ahead and type your answer in the chat. Awesome, good job. So we read this as 12 times y, so I'm going to do the opposite, divide by 12. So then y equals 2. So if you got y equals 2, good job, you got it correct. If you did not get y equals 2 and you didn't write your answer in there, most importantly, can you figure out how you made your mistake and how to fix it? Because if you can, then that's all that matters, okay? So let's go on to our last part of our solving. We need to figure out what x equals. Since we know y is 2, oh, not writing. Oh no, we know y is 2. It's not working. Sorry, my pen I think just died. I'm not sure. I'm going to use my finger now, so it might be a little bit messy. Sorry, my pen just died. So we got y equals 2. Let's go ahead and pick one of these equations. You can pick any equation for this last part here as well. As long as you do the math correct, you're still going to get the right answer. And for this part, I always like to pick the easier equation, but for this, it looks like they're both about the same. Maybe the first one is a little bit easier because it's a 4 instead of a 20. So it's smaller numbers. Smaller numbers are always easier to work with, but you can use either equation. But for this one, let's just use the first one, 6x plus 5y equals 4. Sorry, it's messy. I have to use my hand now to write this because my pen just died. So I'm going to take this 2, and I'm going to plug it into this equation over here. Where should the 2 go? Into the x or into the y? Go ahead and write that in the chat. Since y equals 2, I'm going to plug it into the variable y. So let's go ahead and do our substitution. 6x plus 5 parentheses 2 equals 4. And now let's finish solving for y. What is my next step? What should I do next for solving this equation? Go ahead and write in the chat. What should I do next to solve this equation? What is my next step? You can go ahead and write in the chat. And here's your hint. I'm going to work with these two numbers. So if you said multiply, you are correct. We're going to multiply 5 times 2, so I get a positive 10. Bring down the rest of the equation. What's my next step? Go ahead and write in the chat. What should I do to both sides? What is the next step? Your hint is adding or subtracting. So the next thing we're going to do is get rid of this 10. So I'm going to do the opposite, minus 10 on both sides. I'm going to rewrite my stuff over here. Then we get 6x equals, and then 4 minus 10. What do you get when you do 4 minus 10? What is 4 minus 10? And we should get -6. Awesome, good job. We have one more step. What is the last thing I should do? Do what to both sides? Write that in the chat. What is my last step? Awesome, good job. Since we read this as 6 times x, we're going to do the opposite, divide by 6. So x equals -1. You can check your answer down here. And then just make sure, since we got the same thing, you write your final answer in parentheses, -1, comma 2, parentheses. That is your final answer. So if you were to graph this, like we did 2 weeks ago, they would be intersecting with the one solution at that point, -1, 2. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out so you guys can see my whole paper here. So your assignment for today is to do this entire worksheet, all of numbers 1 through 8. Even the ones that we just did together, numbers 2, 4, and 8. You're going to do all of them. Just finish the rest on your own. And if you have any questions on it, you can stay on this meeting and ask me some questions, or you can send me a message later and I can help you out one-on-one if you need it, or I can just send you messages. But if you are all done for today and you have no questions for me, you can go ahead and log out. Just make sure you submit that picture later today of this assignment. And that is it for today. So if you have no questions, you can go ahead and log out. But if you have any questions, I will stay here if you have anything, okay?